wanted to jump in to have a pre-event podcast for our upcoming joint health conference. I am so excited about this opportunity to be able to talk about a topic that's very important to me. It's near and dear to my heart, and that is to talk about how can we keep our joints healthy over a long period of time while living with a bleeding disorder. And we have a lot of fun things going on. We're going to be doing a lot of live streaming sessions with question and answer and an opportunity to be able to engage and meet other people who are living with a bleeding disorder. This is an online event. You can go to our website and learn all about the details of the breakout sessions right there at hope-charities.org. And you can learn out all the details there. We're going to be giving away some amazing prizes in every single breakout session. We'll also be doing some grand prizes. I mean, it is going to be so much fun. You don't want to miss it. But go on to the website and register right now. And we would love to see you there. Once you register, we will send you all the links that you need to know for all the different breakout sessions happening, and maybe pick out one or two of those sessions that you think might really be something you'd be interested in hearing about. And you'll get an opportunity to listen in and to watch and be a part of the Zoom community as we join in as part of this bleeding disorders journey that we're all on. And at the same time, we'll be able to get to know more information, but ask questions to some of our expert presenters, which brings me to my next topic in this podcast. Is I've invited Amber Federizo to join me today to talk a little bit more about her session that she's doing at the upcoming Joint Health Conference. Amber, it is great to see you. Thank you so much for joining me for the podcast today.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Well, I'm super excited about this meeting coming up on September 15th and 16th. I know you are as well. And a lot of great things are going to be happening at this event. I know you're going to be doing a talk and a session specifically about women and this new journey that we're kind of all on, trying to discover what people that have previously been told oftentimes that they couldn't get a diagnosis, they're now discovering they can. And there's a lot of new tensions there, but I'm excited about that talk for sure. And we'll get into more of that pretty soon. But this may be the first time that people are getting to know you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about where you're from and what your role is within Octapharma?
Yeah, so I'm originally from a very small rural town in Nevada. We're talking about, one blinking light in the center of town, that kind of small. So a lot of horseback riding. It's definitely given me a different perspective because when I say I'm from Nevada, I've, experienced the rural areas, the urban areas, and everything in between. And it's given me a perspective that has really replicated the needs of all kinds of individuals across the state. And the state that I live in is 110,000 square miles. And so a lot of distance, geographic barriers, those kinds of things. I do currently live in Las Vegas, so the majority of the time I am here. And then my role within Octapharma is a clinical nurse educator, which I've always said is really just a great translator of words and worlds. So it's just getting that language, even though it sounds like English, into a format that everyone can understand and move forward towards in a progressive way.
I love that. That is so amazing. And you were actually a part of a treatment center that was specializing in bleeding disorders, but I learned recently that you're even part of the Rare Disease Advisory Council, part of RDAC, like I am in my state. And so that's exciting. That's kind of your background as being high touch with the patients as well as the research side, right?
Yes, so I spent over a decade practicing in a treatment center and seeing patients across the lifespan. And then my husband and son have platelet defect disorders as well. So just kind of the community from all perspectives.
That's incredible. And you've seen it firsthand, but what is it that really inspires you about the bleeding disorder community? I mean, you've been working in this field for a long time. You've seen a lot of people come and go. You're doing a lot of activities, talking in these sessions, of course, but what is it that really keeps you inspired about the hemophilia community specifically?
I think what inspires me the most about the community is the sense of family, family that's willing to fight for you to have a better life. And this is a life that some did not get to have for themselves and for which they want to fight to see others have. That sense of protection you have just being present and amongst the community, and the stories that echo through Washington Days or even community advocacy programs and beyond that serve as life missions in some circumstances. And just the sheer strength that it has taken to progress in such a short time and the lives changed under the circumstances. I mean, I've been involved in other disease states, and sometimes the difficulty that piles upon you makes you feel like you want to give up because of the odds are against you. And in this community in particular, there's such a strength and a family inspiration to overcome those. And in working for Octapharma, for example, I'm inspired by this company. The name has never changed. You know, they've never sold their commitment to the hemophilia community or to the world to another organization. They're very involved in international relations and making sure that the entire world is cared for in that regard. And I think that's getting harder and harder to find these days, is that level of commitment that's really from the top all the way down.
That is so true. Truer words could not be spoken. There's so many things, so many reasons why the work that is being done on the research end of things and the support on a global community really benefit each and every one of us in the day to day. As we approach this weekend in particular, about September 15th and 16th with our joint health conference coming up, I know this is a topic that you're passionate about. Tell me, what is it that really inspires you about this topic? Because keeping your joints healthy, oh my gosh, there's a million things we could talk about, but what is it that really inspires you?
So what really inspires me about this topic is that the discussion on keeping joints healthy has been ongoing. I mean, for the last 15 years, we've known the efficacy of treating and preventing joint damage, but we still don't have a good understanding of how much is needed, how often, what kind is truly optimal in a prophylactic sense to prevent long-term complications. We pursued zero ABR for such a very long time, and yet we even found, even in the setting of zero ABRs, there's still damage that's occurring. And the science has really moved away from having simple hemophilia A and simple hemophilia B or even von Willebrand disorder, and it's evolved to an understanding that individual genetics and the genotypes and the expressions and how they present can really play a factor in that, and the risks that can come with some of those genetic mutations and not so much others. And some of the research behind that, such as for Octapharma, the HCHEC program, that really has started to develop, are we looking at null mutations? Are we looking at non-null mutations? What does that mean for a family? Can we talk in terms of how differences within even hemophilia A and B might manifest to those genetics? And so it's my belief that if we can finally overcome the challenge of preventing damage and really get to more of an age expected degenerations for joints, so more along the lines of what a 40-year-old in the absence of hemophilia would have, if we can get to that point, then we will be able to focus on new challenges that as a community we are newly facing as well, such as aging and getting women to the same level of care. So I'm excited to embark on this joint health and merely make sure that we can get past this in a way, because once we have this set in stone, we can start to move on to new and exciting things and finally have this foundation of joint health.
Gosh, that is so true. And I love how you phrase that, because really and truly, I think that so many people, even about among the ABR, I think the question should be discussed and arise with all of us is like, how do you define a bleed? You can line up 10 people living with hemophilia and ask them that question, and they're probably going to all give you a different answer. And even when we go into the levels like of ultrasound, for instance, there can still be damage that's occurring that's not being detected through microbleeding and other things that can't always be seen by just saying, hey, this is a bleed. I mean, we've seen that just since HOPE has been around in the last 13 years. What we started with in a lot of our programs that defined living with a bleeding disorder are very different than they are now. And that's a good thing in some ways, because treatment continues to advance. But at the same time, we have to be vigilant at saying that maybe the ABR itself is not, and for those that are watching this that may not know, this annual bleed rate, it's subjective. It takes the patient to be able to know what that even is. Is it swelling, inflammation, burning? Is it some type of pressure? There could be a whole lot going on there that we're not even detecting. And like you said, it has a lot to do with the genotype and all of science that we're still discovering a lot. And we need the input of both the patient community and the clinical community to come together for that research to really make an impact, right?
Yes, and that's one of the things that I really appreciate about this topic is, like I said, we've kind of set the bar and now we need to set it higher. And now once we now have this bar really set for joint health, then we can start to set this bar and these expectations higher for other things such as aging and women with bleeding disorders.
I love that. Well, that's a great segue into your topic because I know you're going to be speaking specifically to this issue of women with bleeding disorders at 2:15 Central Time on September 15th. So tell me a little bit about that presentation. What are you going to be diving into? What is that about?
So the presentation really speaks to where we have been historically with women and bleeding disorders, where we are now, and kind of the promise of what the future can really be for women with bleeding disorders. I always tell this story, one day at a bleeding disorders event in very rural Nevada, out in Elko, Nevada, Lynn Barker, who used to work for Octapharma, he attended one of my presentations and he said to me, Amber, I wish my daughters had had the chance to have something like this when they were younger, to understand themselves and to have a better education. And he really took it back to Octapharma and said, we really need to sponsor this. We need to really approve these topics and get going in terms of focusing on women. And it was the first time for me that a company had, come out products for Hemophilia A and von Willebrand and had ever really shown support specifically for women. I had seen it happen for Hemophilia B, but I hadn't seen it in a genuine degree outside of that. And so Octapharma came out and said, we're going to support these conversations. Nothing is too taboo or too edgy in terms of, speaking to women's health and getting the support out there. And, Lynn remained committed to me, and he drove me in a snowstorm through Montana to make sure that I could get to women who had requested these types of presentations, and really just having those conversations about where we've been. Even when I last started over a decade ago, we've made progress, but not as much as I really would have liked to see. And now that I can educate more on a more national level and I have the ability to do this full time, I am hoping to see it progress more and kind of see where we have been and where we are and then where we can be. So this presentation will kind of go through all of those, all of the changes, all of the language, all of the stigma, all of the difficulties, all of the barriers that women have really faced, kind of coming out, acknowledging it, owning it, saying, everyone has accountability into where we have been with women and where we can go with women in the future.
I love that. I'm so excited about this topic and this session in particular because, as you know, and many people know now, that I have girls that are dealing with this very thing in my own home. I have 4 kids, 2 of which are daughters, and they've really had their own journey with this. And it's been important for me as a dad living with a bleeding disorder to be really educated about where my girls are at, because their experience has been different than mine, but nonetheless, it's also been just as impactful, and in some ways, not, if not more, just because there's been a sense of just in their lifetime alone, there's been so many developments and greater understanding that's occurred within the clinical setting, that when they were younger, they were told, no, that can't happen. And then they had experiences and problems along the way. And then they were given resistance even when trying to discover. And then at some point there was relief because there were solutions. And so even for me, who where I feel like I'm pretty educated on my own hemophilia, I've had to almost relearn some things about how hemophilia has impacted them. So thank you for being willing to have this conversation and being a leading voice for those of us who are trying to learn, because it's so important for us to make sure that we are able to understand the dynamics, and especially in so many ways. The science is, this science has been around for a long time, but our belief in what we can accomplish with the science is still developing. And so I'm excited.
Yes, I'm really excited as well.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm looking forward to it. And if anybody has questions, this is going to be a great time for you to attend this session as well and ask Amber any questions that you have. I mean, this is a great time to kind of engage in some of that too. But Amber, thank you again for being willing to be a part of the Joint Health Conference coming up. And we look forward to seeing you very soon.
Thank you.
Bye now. Well, big thank you to Amber and her whole team for joining us for this Joint Health Conference coming up on September 15th and 16th. Look, you don't want to miss these sessions. They are so in-depth and so packed with great information that it's going to be a fantastic time. Amber's session specifically on this topic of women with bleeding disorders, new emphasis. It's about time. I think this is a really good time for us to focus on this. That session is happening on the 15th at 2:15 p.m. Mark your calendars at Central Standard Time. So if you're on the East or West Coast, or shout out to my mountain folks times, then you need to make sure you mark your calendar appropriately. But we're excited about that. You can go right to our website at hope-charities.org, and you can learn more about all the details of these sessions, the speakers, the lineup, the giveaways, the endless fun. I mean, there's so much happening. You're just going to be have a ton of fun with us. So make sure that you tune in. We've got a lot of people that jump in these sessions. Some people are working and they're just kind of keeping it on like a podcast on the side. Some people are running or exercising, or they're listening to their schoolwork. They're doing different things. So we understand you can do this and take us with you while you go. But the best part about it is the engagement, the opportunity to ask questions. So be thinking in that direction as you look through all of those things. But you can register once and get access to all of the sessions. So super easy. We'll send you the links and you can jump right in on an easy Zoom call right from your phone, your computer, your mobile device. But it has been great hanging out with you today. Thanks for tuning in for this podcast. And we certainly look forward to it very, very soon. Go click the link and register now. We want to see you there. Take care.